Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Tuesday, March 12th. If you're joining me for the very first time, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. Then after that, we'll go over to RotoWire, talk about the injuries in play. It's a 7-game main slate on both sites tonight. There are only 2 teams on the back-to-back. And then after that, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and FanDuel and talk about my core picks for tonight. It's going to be one player at each position, so point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. But without further ado, we'll get over to that recap of yesterday's picks. Unfortunately, I kind of crashed yesterday. I passed out probably around 5 o'clock. So I did miss a lot of kind of the updates in terms of the lineups, in terms of the updated core yesterday. So I do apologize for that. I did list Grady Dick here down at the bottom because he would have been in my updated core. I threw him in a couple of lineups I set before I ultimately ended up passing out, but he would have been in there for probably Alex Caruso on both sites. So I'm going to talk about him just a little bit. But at point guard, we had Chris Paul, $6,900, looking for at least 35 out. Got to 44.25, so he was a hit on DraftKings. Then at shooting guard, we had Delano Banton, $5,100. Was looking for 25, 26 out. Only got 17 yesterday. He was a miss. 22 minutes. He didn't end up starting in that game, so that was kind of unfortunate there. Scoot Henderson was back and in that starting lineup. And then at small forward, we had Alex Caruso, $5,300, looking for, 26, 27 at him. Only got 16.75, so he was a mess. Played 21 minutes this game, 1 for 6 shooting from the field, and it was a pretty big blowout. However, if you went down to Grady Dick at $4,600, with all those Raptors being ruled out yesterday, looking for 23 at him, got to 37, so he was a pretty good hit just in general. Then at power forward, we had Al Horford, $5,400, looking for at least 27 at him, got to 31.5, so he was a hit. And then lastly at center, we had Nick Richards, $5,700, looking for 28, 29 at him, got to 30.25, so he was a hit as well. So a pretty decent day overall. Obviously, Alex Caruso, Delano Banton weren't the greatest, but if you had some exposure to Nikola Jokic, if you played some Brandon Miller, who we had on FanDuel, if you played him on DraftKings, wasn't too bad of a day overall. Me, myself, personally, I just had, kind of a little double up line, but Banton and Caruso kind of hurt that overall. And then on the FanDuel side, we had Chris Paul, $7,000, so he was looking for at least 35 out. Got to 43.8, so he was a hit. At shooting guard, if you went the Alex Caruso route, $5,900, was looking for 29, 30 out of him. Got to 16.5. Once again, was a miss for all the reasons we talked about on the DraftKings side. And then at small forward, we had Brandon Miller, $7,000, looking for at least 35 out of him. Got to 41.5, so he was a pretty good hit as well. At power forward, went with Grant Williams, $5,000, was looking for at least 25 out of him. Got to 30.8, so he was a hit. And then lastly, at center, we had Al Horford, $5,600, looking for at least 28 out of him, got to 33.8, so he was a hit as well. And then once again, if you went with Grady Dick, he was $4,400. On the FanDuel side, was looking for at least 22 out of him, got to 37.3, so he was a really good hit over there. So all around, it was a pretty good day despite the lack of having that updated core out. So hopefully you all had some success yesterday. Do apologize once again that I did kind of unfortunately end up passing up. Unfortunately, I was up for, about a whole day before that, so and just didn't end up being the greatest and just kind of crashed overall. So I do apologize for that once again. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about those injuries in play for tonight's slate. So once again, it's a 7-game main slate on both sites. We got the Philadelphia 76ers, who are without Robert Covington, Joel Embiid, and DeAnthony Melton once again. The biggest news for them is going to be that Tyrese Maxey has clear concussion protocol and will return to the lineup tonight. So we'll see what that lineup ultimately ends up looking like for them overall. Then on the New York Knicks side, we have Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, both out once again. But OG Anunoby is expected to make his return tonight. He has missed a handful of games now at this point in time due to that elbow injury, probably almost a month at the bare minimum, maybe a little bit longer than that even. So ultimately, we'll end up seeing if he's in that starting lineup and then kind of how many minutes he plays in this game, but probably not a guy we're wanting to get to tonight overall. Then we move over to the Pacers, just Doug McDermott out for them once again tonight. Obviously, Benedict Mathurin did have that season-ending shoulder surgery over, kind of the weekend, so that was unfortunate for him and did open up a little bit of minutes overall. So maybe a couple guys that we can take advantage of overall for this Pacers team just in general. Then on the Thunder side, we have the starting forward, Jalen Williams, dealing with a rolled ankle now at this point in time, an ankle sprain. So we'll see ultimately whether or not he plays tonight or not. He is technically listed as questionable. If he's unable to go, it will be interesting to see who starts in his place, whether it's a Kenrich Williams, Gordon Hayward, Cason Wallace, or someone else. For the Washington Wizards, they're without Marvin Bagley once again, as well as Landry Shamet. And then Rashawn Holmes is also listed as questionable to play tonight with a toe injury. We'll see whether or not he's ultimately able to go or not. If he's unable to go, it's probably going to be Kyle Kuzma sliding down to that center position just in general. And then on the Grizzlies side, we got a whole bunch of injuries once again. So we got Desmond Bane, Brandon Clark, Jaren Jackson Jr., Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart, Yuta Watanabe, Zaire Williams, and Vince Williams all listed as out for tonight's game. And then Scottie Pippen Jr. listed as doubtful. He is probably not going to play once again. And then we have Jordan Goodwin, John Conchar, and Lamar Stevens all dealing with a couple injuries here and there. All this is questionable to play for tonight's game. If I had to guess, I'm going to assume that Goodwin's probably going to be out once again tonight just because he's on that two-way. And they're trying to cap how many games he's actually active for, plus the injury on top of it. Conchar, I probably would assume would play tonight, but we'll have to see as the night moves along. Should be some value opening up on this Memphis team overall. It will be really interesting to see what their starting lineup ultimately ends up looking like. Then we move down to the Houston Rockets, who are without Anfernee Sengun and Cam Whitmore. I can't remember if we've seen a game since Sengun got hurt, which was kind of unfortunate there. We'll see who ultimately ends up starting at center in this matchup. Probably, if I had to guess, it'd be Jabari Smith Jr. moving over to that center spot, especially against the Spurs tonight. Maybe it's Jack Landale. And Jack Landale, if it's him, maybe you want to go with that little bit of a revenge game since he did play for the Spurs at once upon a time, but I'm not buying too much into that just in general. And then on the Spurs side, they are on the back-to-back, so we'll see what their injury report looks like as the day moves on. Obviously, it's important to note that Victor Wembanyama did miss a couple games in a row with an ankle injury, did come back last night, played 31 minutes, so we'll see whether or not he is good to go tonight on the back-to-back or not. And then we move over to the Boston Celtics. They're the other team on the back-to-back. Drew Holiday sat out yesterday as well as Kristaps Porzingis. And then I believe Shea McCallum's got an actual injury. So we'll see what their injury report looks like as the day moves along. Pretty safe to assume that Al Horford will rest tonight on the second half of the back-to-back. We'll see ultimately whether or not Porzingis is back or not. If he's not, then we're looking at maybe a little bit of center value there, whether it ends up being Luke Cornett, whether it's Quetta, or whether it is Xavier Tillman kind of getting that start for them. But the unfortunate part nowadays is that there is three of them that could potentially eat away at those minutes just in general. And then on the Utah Jazz side, we got Taylor Hendricks and Lauri Markkanen both out once again tonight. We move down to the Minnesota Timberwolves. We got Jalen Clark and Karl-Anthony Towns both out. Clark's been out all season. Towns is going to be out for quite some time at this point. Then Monte Morris listed as questionable. He's dealing with a hamstring injury as their backup point guard. Rudy Gobert listed as questionable, missed their most recent game with a hamstring injury. We'll see whether or not he's ultimately good to go tonight or not. That could be a pretty big factor for them just in general. And then we have Anthony Edwards listed as questionable due to a shoulder injury, as well as Kyle Anderson. So 4 guys there that we're definitely going to want to monitor as the day moves along. More importantly, Kyle Anderson, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert, as that could potentially open up some value on this Timberwolves team overall. Then on the opposite side with the Clippers, we got Russell Westbrook listed as out, and then Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, both listed as questionable to play for tonight's game overall. And I believe both did play in the most recent game, so I'm not too worried about them, but we'll see if anything does change throughout the day. Moving over to the Milwaukee Bucks, Chris Middleton has been upgraded to questionable. He's been out for quite some time now at this point, so we'll see whether or not he's good to go tonight or not. And then if he ends up playing tonight, he will obviously be on some type of minutes limit. And then Marchand Beauchamp, also listed as questionable, just kind of a reserve role player for them. Not anybody that we want to play for DFS purposes. AJ Green listed as probable, although he has not played in their couple most recent games. And then Giannis listed as probable once again, so it's safe to assume that he will ultimately end up playing tonight as well. On the Sacramento Kings side, Sasha Vechenko remains out, and then Keegan Murray listed as questionable to play. He's dealing with an ankle sprain at this point in time. So we'll see ultimately whether or not he ends up starting. If he doesn't, maybe it's Trey Lyles getting the spot start in his place. Maybe it's Harrison Barnes moving down to that power forward spot, and then they start like Chris Duarte or someone else at the 3. It'll be really interesting to see what they do with that. Probably safe to assume that Malik Monk will not start since they like him coming off the bench just in general. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries in play for tonight. As always, I will be listing all the injury updates as they do come out throughout the day, as well as the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. Caught up on a little bit of sleep yesterday. Probably going to try to sleep a little bit more today, so that should not be an issue once again tonight. Do apologize for that once again. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks over there. So we're going to start off at the point guard position with Tyus Jones, $6,200. Good matchup tonight. First, the Memphis Grizzlies should be a really favorable one between two really poor teams at this point in time, but should be a decent paced game. Should be pretty back and forth. Do like Tyus Jones once again tonight. If he gets the minutes, he's going to look pretty good overall. At $6,200, you're looking for at least 31 on him. He's averaging about 30 so far on the season. Was a little bit down earlier on in the year. Had some minutes limits kind of at times, but these games where he's played at least 30 minutes, he's been doing really well. So do like him once again tonight. Currently I'm projected for about 32. Definitely does have a little bit of upside for more as well. Then on the opposite side of that game, it's going to be Luke Kennard at shooting guard. He is essentially the starting point guard probably once again tonight for the Memphis Grizzlies. $5,000, looking for 25 out of him. Obviously been a weird year for him coming off the bench, starting, dealing with a lot of injuries here and there, but in these games where he's gotten these extra usage, he's done pretty well. So definitely do like him tonight in that pace-up spot versus the Washington Wizards. Looking for 25 out of him at $5,000. Currently I'm projected for about 27, 28 tonight. Then at small forward, we got Aaron Nesmith here for the Indiana Pacers, $5,400. Looking for 27 out of him. Should be getting some extra minutes once again with no Benedict Mathurin out there. Do like him quite a bit. Should be a pretty back and forth game between the Pacers and the Thunder tonight. Should be a pretty high-paced game as well. So should favor a guy like Aaron Nesmith just a little bit more than he typically would be. And, right now, probably have him projected, right around 28 fantasy points tonight on the DraftKings side. Could have a little bit of upside for more, though, as well, but also does come with a little bit of downside for less. Ultimately ends up depending on probably how he ends up shooting in this game overall. Then at power forward, we're going with Kyle Kuzma. He's just too cheap at this point in time. Once again, $8,000. Looking for 40 out of him. If you look at the season average, it's just under 40, but his last 8 games, he's had at least 40 DraftKings points. 9 out of his last 10 games, he's also had at least 40 DraftKings points. So he has a really safe floor. It's a really attractive matchup tonight versus the Memphis Grizzlies. If he starts in that center spot, could get a couple extra rebounds as well. So definitely do like the upside he presents overall, and does come with a pretty safe floor at the same time as well. And then last but not least, at the center position, we have Ivica Zubac, $5,300, looking for 26, 27 out of him, averaging about 28 so far in the season. Kind of the big thing for him is since he's come back from injuries, hasn't played a ton of minutes, but the last 2 games have been 26, and he scored at least 30 DraftKings points in both those games. A little bit of a tougher matchup tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves if Rudy Gobert plays. If Rudy Gobert does not play tonight, Ivica Zubac should have a pretty favorable matchup, whether or not he's going against Naz Reid, whether or not it is Luka Garza or someone else at that center spot for the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. So definitely do like the upside that he could present. Guy that always seems to be a pretty good GPP option, and at this price tag is a pretty favorable value play at the same time as well. But with that being said, if you do go with the 5 players that I do currently have listed here, you have $20,100 remaining, $6,700 per player. So looking a little bit more like a balanced build type of day so far early on to start off the day. We'll see what other value does end up popping up throughout the day, potentially paying down in a couple other spots, maybe paying up for one star player at the end of the day. Although, when you're looking at the top, you got Giannis way up there at $11,500, and then you're probably dropping down to like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at $10,500. Domantas Sabonis kind of in that range as well. We'll see whether or not Victor Wembanyama ultimately plays tonight. He's not a guy that I completely love, even if he does ultimately end up playing tonight as well. But with that being said, we can move over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So we're going to start off at the point guard position with Fred VanVleet for the Houston Rockets. $8,000, looking for 40 out of him. He's averaging just under 38 so far in the season, but going against the San Antonio Spurs tonight, pace-up spot. They've been giving up a lot of fantasy points to that point guard position just in general as of late. Fred VanVleet's been playing a little bit better as of late. Obviously had the injury there where his minutes were a little bit limited when he first came back. Wasn't quite as effective, but that kind of doesn't look like the case at this point in time. So like the upside that he has tonight, there is no Alperen Sengun, so probably an assist rate bump, a little bit of a usage bump for him as well. And then kind of with all that being said, currently I've been projected for about 42 fantasy points on the FanDuel side tonight. Then at shooting guard, we're going to Luke Kennard. Once again, $4,700 is all he is on FanDuel tonight. He, I believe, is point guard and shooting guard eligible over there now as well, which is a big change for him because he's been shooting guard and small forward most of the year, but that's a story for a different day. You're only looking for 23, 24 out of him. It's not the greatest season. It's been a weird year for him once again. Has been coming off the bench at times, starting at times. Minutes have been kind of all over the place. Been dealing with some injuries here and there, but do like his upside tonight, especially with no Jaren Jackson Jr. out there, with a lot of those other guys that soak up usage not being out there as well. Should be a pretty favorable matchup for him going against the Washington Wizards tonight. Pace-up spot does come with a pretty decent amount of upside. Currently have him projected for about 25, 26 over on the FanDuel side tonight. Obviously doesn't get that nice 3-point bonus, which is something that he can really benefit from over on DraftKings. You don't get that on FanDuel, but should be a pretty attractive option altogether. Then at small forward, I ultimately end up on Corey Kispert here, just kind of somebody cheap. We'll see whether or not, Rashawn Holmes plays tonight or not. Could open up another spot in that lineup tonight. And, Kyle Kuzma is probably going to start at center in that situation. If that's the case, Corey Kispert's probably going to start regardless. But $4,900 looking for 24, 25 out. If he plays big minutes like he did the last time, should be a pretty favorable one for him. Going against Memphis is a really attractive matchup just in general. So like the upside that he does present at a reasonable price tag. And, I currently have him projected for about 26 fantasy points tonight. Obviously has a little bit of downside for less if the minutes aren't there, if he doesn't shoot the ball quite as well, and if he doesn't contribute in a couple other categories, could be a little bit less than what we're looking for out of him, but probably not a guy that's going to kill you altogether regardless, but does come with a pretty good upside at the same time as well. Then at power forward, we're going to Aaron Nesmith. We talked about him a little bit on the DraftKings side, $5,300, looking for 26, 27 out of him. Playing big minutes with no Benedict Mathurin out there. Once again, going against the Oklahoma City Thunder. High-paced back-and-forth matchup between these two teams should benefit a guy like him as long as he's shooting the ball decently well tonight. Should reasonably outperform this price tag more times than not. Currently, I'm projected for about 28 tonight. Has a little upside for more at the same time as well. And then we're going to stick with that game and his teammate Miles Turner, $6,800. He ultimately ended up just kind of being the safest projection in terms of that center position today. If you want to go to like Brook Lopez, you could do it. Although he hasn't been great lately, if you want to pay up to a couple other guys, you can definitely do that as well. But $6,800, looking for 34 out of him. He's averaging 33 so far in the season. High-paced, back-and-forth game. It's a pretty favorable matchup going against Chet Holmgren as well. Not another guy that's going to try to bully him. Probably shouldn't get into foul trouble. If he gets at least 28 minutes, this game is going to look pretty good overall. Currently, I'm projected right around that 33, 34 fantasy points, but definitely does come with a little bit of upside for more at the same time as well, especially on the FanDuel side, if he's going out there and getting some steals and blocks just in general. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I currently have listed here on the FanDuel side, you have $30,300 remaining, just under $7,600 per player, so a good amount of money left over. Probably pay up for a star player if that's something you really want to do. If you want to take a little bit more balanced approach the rest of the way, you can definitely do that as well. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, March 12th. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. I do ask that you please note whether those questions are more FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then as always, I'll be listing all the injury updates down in the comments below throughout the day, as well as the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. Once again, do apologize for yesterday, kind of dozing off, crashing, and not getting that information out there as I typically do, but definitely a one-off thing, and don't get that too often throughout the season. Just kind of a crash day, which is something that I didn't really have planned, but we'll be right back on it today overall. And then, as always, I will have my updated core posted as a pinned comment about 15 to 20 minutes prior to lock as well. If there's any other additional changes to that core after that point in time, I will leave them as a reply to that pinned comment as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we just have NBA DFS going on in terms of the core picks Monday through Friday. But starting at the end of the month, we'll be starting up some MLB DFS in terms of the daily core pick videos for that. And then the once a week video for the UFL DFS, which will be exciting to do as well. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely be sure to check that out. If it's something you haven't done before in the past and kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about that, definitely check it out as well. And definitely ask any questions that you may have related to that as well. Be more than willing to help you with that journey as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for Prize Picks, Parlay Play, and BetUS. If you are a brand new user to any one of those 3 sites, when you first sign up, you make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Parlay Play and Prize Picks, it's 100% match on your initial deposit up to $100. For BetUS, it's 125% match on your initial deposit up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to take advantage of out there. Whether you're putting $10 in, whether you're putting $100 in the case of BetUS, if you're putting even more than that in, a lot of great ways to take advantage of that, especially when you're first starting out. And then if you do have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one you tune in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.